Hello, everybody. It's your Christian medical biochemist here again. Last time I talked about complete blood count, CBC test. I talked about complete blood count. And some persons have been asking me what it is about and how they can be able to do it. Well, the good news is that this test is somehow it's cheap. You know, the subject of something being affordable is relative. What can be affordable for one can or may not be affordable for the other, so it's relative. But to the best of my knowledge, it's affordable. I can't give you a specific price now, but away from that. So the complete blood count is a biochemical test, more like a biochemical panel that is carried out to measure the level of your blood components. Your blood is made up of three major components: your erythrocytes, which are your RBCs, your red blood cells; your leukocytes, which are your white blood cells; and your thrombocytes, which are your platelets. So when you do a CBC, a complete blood count test, now what it measures is the level of each of these components: your RBCs, red blood cells; white blood cells, WBCs; and your thrombocytes, your platelets. The level of each of them, they have a normal range, but a deviation from this normal range can indicate that something is wrong. Okay, for instance, your red blood cells. So if you do a CBC test and you see that your red blood cell is actually below the normal, then of course it means that such a person will be prone to tiredness, will be prone to fainting, because it means that now your red blood cell has a pigment that is called hemoglobin. Blood cell has a pigment called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the part of your red blood cell responsible for the transportation of oxygen into cells. So if you do a CBC and your RBC, your red blood cell, is below the normal, it means that your cells are not receiving enough oxygen, and the consequence of that is that your cells will not be producing energy enough, and of course it means that you are going to be always sluggish, always fainting, always tired. So that's for RBC. Then for your WBC, that's your white blood cell. So if you do a CBC and your WBC, your white blood cell, is very high, that's above the normal range, it means that there is an underlying infection, an organic infection in any part of your body. So it needs to be traced out. If you do a complete blood count test and your white blood cell is too high, above the normal, it means that there's an infection. You know, your WBCs, your white blood cells, they are like the army of your body. They are fighting, constantly fighting microorganisms, fighting pathogens, fighting disease-causing organisms, and all that. However, if you do and your WBC is low, it means that your immune system is very, very low. So any little infection, any little pathogen, any little disease can knock you off. And finally, if you do a CBC, complete blood count, and you discover that your platelets are low, it means that now, what's the duty of the platelet? The platelets are responsible for blood clotting. That is, for instance, you have an injury, or you have a bleeding, or you have a cut. After some time, you notice that the bleeding just stops. While your platelets, your thrombocytes, they have gone to actually smear the surface of that place. They have gone to actually, they have clogged up, call it platelets agglutination, or they have gone to stop that excess loss of blood. You understand? To clot that excess loss of blood. So that's for the platelet. So if your blood platelets are low, as your thrombocytes, if they are too low, it means that if you have any little cut, any little injury, it means that the person is just going to keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. So you can understand the implication of that. It's very, very deadly. So the person needs to actually work on it. So I take it again, your RBCs, if it's too low, it means that your cells are not receiving enough oxygen, and therefore you're going to be always tired, always fainting, always sluggish. If you do a CBC and your white blood cell is too high, it means that there's an underlying infection. You do a CBC and your WBC, your white blood cells, they are too low, it means your immune system is faulty, it's very weak. You do a CBC, a complete blood count test, and your blood platelets are too low, it means that any slightest cut, any little injury, you're going to just keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. So I hope I've helped you. So I remain your Christian medical biochemist. You can reach out to me for more explanation, more elucidations. Thank you very much. Look forward to the next episode.